Good morning, and thank you for joining all of us here today at the ESC in regard to keyboarding. I think because of the Common Core and all of the state tests, keyboarding has really been in the forefront. I think school districts are even looking at adding it to report cards and things like that, because we do know that from keyboarding, students get a certain amount of confidence and they use computers much more efficiently. And because many of the state tests, which we now have a Wisconsin Forward state test, new name, it used to be the Badger test, and then prior to that it was Smarter Balance. But Wisconsin Forward still has pretty much the same format, where the expectations of students having to input text and fairly quickly and in a confident manner is still very, very important. So I'm going to just get started with the keyboarding and what resources we have here in KUSD to help our students become successful, and how you can integrate some of these skills in your classroom. So with that said, I'm going to start my presentation. Any questions before I get started? No questions? Okay. Carrie, you'll let me know if there's some questions from behind the scenes then.
Absolutely.
So within KUSD, we have two devices that we use in particular at the 3rd and 4th grade, and we even have some schools now using them at the 2nd grade level. One is the Forte, and that's our newest model, and you just got that 2 years ago, and it's white. 10 years ago, we had the Writer, and we still have these available as well, and so that is one resource. In addition to that, we are using Chromebooks, and the Chromebooks do have some typing programs. We have not initially formally adopted any of those programs. We still prefer the first experience to be on the Writers and the Fortes because of the program, the way it keeps track of the students and their fingering technique, which is most essential. So with that being said, I'll lead you through this slideshow so that you can go back and reference this. I talked a little bit about the Wisconsin Forward, formerly known as the Badger test. So what is expected of our students at this time? In 3rd grade, 1 to 2 paragraphs, and developmentally, most times, what some of the naysayers about Common Core and things like that, they don't feel kids are really ready until 5th or 6th grade to really start formulating good paragraphs. But my experience has been with mentoring and good strategies within the classroom, we can start early helping students develop good writing skills. And one way of doing that is when they have keyboarding skills, they're able to actually focus on the writing and the structures of the sentence and their vocabulary, and not the actual tool itself, looking for a letter and things like that, which makes it very difficult. So having that skill is ideal. There are expectations, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. What do we expect from our students in kindergarten, 1st grade? But right now, in 3rd grade, they are expected on the Wisconsin Forward test to type at least 1 to 2 paragraphs. In 4th grade, it can be up to 1 page of text, and in 5th grade, 2 pages of text. Now, just recently I attended the SLATE conference over in Wisconsin Dells, which is the state of Wisconsin, and I talked with some DPI representatives, and I asked, you know, do we have some state initiatives that we're going to do? Because I had found a very nice video from the Utah State of Education, and I'm going to share that with you a moment. And they're really getting the word out in the community about how important keyboarding is to a person's success in the 21st century. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with you now. And you can reference this later and share with peers, but it's a short video, and I think you'll enjoy it.
In the world of education, subjects like math and English are considered so important. They're taught in every grade, K through 12, and are components of every college degree program. Considered as root cognitive skills, they are key to all educational enterprises and ultimately to workplace productivity. So we send our students armed with pencils and calculators out to take on the world, knowing we've done an excellent job providing all the skills they need to really...
Did you say productivity?
Carrie, are you seeing the video?
Yes.
Okay, Jesse was not seeing the video. What about Diane and Julie? Okay.
Aren't you forgetting one little detail? Computers reach every aspect of our lives, at home, in the classroom, and at work. So we're sending our students out into the world armed with pencils?
Yeah.
Doesn't today's productivity now require excellent keyboarding skills?
Well, most of these kids come from homes where they have computers.
Okay, so what's the typing speed of the average third grader? And now every district is administering high-stakes tests online.
Why, I see what you mean. I'm surrounded in my studio every day by 5 or 6 keyboards.
Hi, I'm Patty Harrington, State Superintendent of Public Schools. We do have a serious problem on our hands. Keyboarding is a critical literacy skill needed by every student in Utah's classrooms. We can no longer afford to assume students are gaining keyboarding skills outside of the classroom. We cannot create an educational environment that demands keyboarding skill and not teach keyboarding to our students.
I'm so tired of taking the kids in the computer lab and having them struggle. Day after day, these kids are put in front of the computer and they just don't have the skills. What's going to happen when the direct writing assessment goes online and these kids aren't able to finish their essays in the allotted time?
I have a computer at my house, but I don't use the keyboard a lot because I just use the mouse for everything I need to do.
What we really need is ongoing keyboarding instruction to teach the kids proper technique and increase their speed so they can be successful throughout their educational careers. If students do not learn how to keyboard properly, students are going to fall behind, both in education and in their careers in the future.
I think the keyboard skills for our students today are essential for their success in the classroom. So much of our classroom curriculum is based on students having effective keyboarding skills, that without it, I see the students that lose confidence because they lack the ability and oftentimes become frustrated with school and give up when simply they just need the ability to improve their keyboarding skills to be a better student. As I talk to students about college and their future and their careers, having the important skills of keyboarding is so essential to their success. When I think about the reports that they'll be writing, the research they'll be doing, the emails they'll be doing, I mean, so much of today's interaction and productivity really relies on just good keyboarding skills. At least 90% of today's jobs, whether they're office, professional, blue-collar, or technical, rely on interfacing with the computer for data entry and communications. It really limits the student's career choice if they don't have good keyboarding skills.
There are model keyboarding programs in some of our schools. Students in these programs are leading the way in terms of academic success.
Here at Shelley Elementary, we recognize the importance of keyboarding in the writing process. Because it helps with the spelling, it helps with the writing. Right now, my students are writing journals and learning how to word process and so on. But also, they're learning a life skill, that's going to help them later, especially for those end-of-the-year tests that are now requiring writing from the students online testing. And so that will better help them to truly score to their potential.
Makes a big difference to have keyboarding skills. It's nice to be able to type and use computers in the classroom, especially when we do typing and writing stuff on the computer.
Technology is crucial in our elementary schools, especially in this ever-changing world, and keyboarding skills really allow students to access that. And so many other opportunities come from keyboarding. In fact, I will tell you that one of my big regrets in life is not ever having taken a keyboarding class when I was coming up through school. I've paid the price and had to recoup skills since then, and boy, I wish I would have had that. And I want that for our students. I want them to be able to become proficient at keyboarding while they are here, and that in turn will open up many doors for them in the future.
Years ago, it was believed that
children younger than 8th or 9th or 10th grade could not learn to keyboard. But with the change in the size of the keyboard and the fact that it doesn't take a lot of strength to activate the keys anymore like it used to on an old typewriter, it's now very easy for children as young as 7 and 8 years old to learn how to keyboard well. When we talk about efficient and effective use of the keyboard, we're not talking about an old hunt and peck method, because the truth is, if we're using that method to keyboard, we're only typing as fast as we could handwrite. And we ought to be inputting information at 3 or 4 times the rate that we can handwrite. A good intensive program can begin and should begin in the 3rd grade.
In Davis School District, we've implemented an elementary keyboarding program, but it just isn't enough. Students don't have the time and schools don't have the resources to adequately teach this skill. The keyboarding program needs to continue into the junior high. In order to implement a successful keyboarding program, it's imperative that we have the support of principals, of school administration, and also to have adequate funding.
In 3rd grade, there is a course set forth with the standards and objectives to teach students proper technique as well as proper hand placement. These skills are reinforced in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. It is very important that the students at this age gain that proper technique. The direct writing assessment is scheduled to go online shortly. This will require the students to get their thoughts inputted into computer. With this test being given in the 6th grade and the 9th grade, it is imperative that the students have good inputting skills.
I recently came to work and I didn't have a computer connection, and it was interesting that I couldn't begin my day without my technology. I panicked, and I had taken for granted how technology has changed our world. Technology and keyboarding are now integral skills for success. When we talk about the walkaways that kids have to have as they graduate from high school, or even going in through middle school and into high school, we want them to be good communicators. We want them to have interpersonal skills and be able to work as a team. But the keyboarding is now our mode of communication, and I think sometimes we take for granted just how many times during the day we sit down and our correspondence is through a keyboard. So keyboarding is now an essential skill that kids must have throughout their school experience and into life.
You know, we teach our students a lot of great things, but it's so true that in this day and age, so much of it hinges on a person's ability to use a keyboard. Hi, I'm Bob Wadley. I've been an educator for the past 33 years. During that time, I've worked as a junior high and high school teacher, a school and district administrator, and I'm now teaching at the university level. Students today, more than ever before, use computers extensively in connection with their schoolwork, and they will use them more than ever before in their future employment. Today's world is much different, and the need for keyboarding skill occurs much sooner and will be valuable to students at a much younger age. We're asking district administrators, school boards, principals, and teachers to find the time, the ways, and means to make keyboarding instruction a priority in all elementary schools. This effort must begin there and then be reinforced at middle, junior, and high schools. We can't ignore this need. We can't assume students come to us at any level with keyboarding ability. We can't assume computer literacy will exist unless we teach this basic literacy skill. We hope you'll join this initiative to better educate our students. The effort is worth it, and the final outcome will be
keyboarding skills!
For additional information, contact Janet Goebel, business.
Okay, thank you for watching that. I just felt that that particular video from Utah had some valuable information, and it gives a real foundation about what schools are starting to do. It's interesting because out west, they've really taken an initiative to make sure that keyboarding is taught, and many schools are starting to add it on report cards, as I said. The only school in Wisconsin that I'm aware of at this time is Wisconsin Rapids that has added it to their report card. So I think those discussions are going to follow because they're seeing that keyboarding is a critical skill, and I think many of you see how confident students are. They did a survey last year in regard to the Smarter Balance testing, and it was interesting that the results of that survey said 67% of the students were comfortable with the keyboarding, and of those 67% surveyed, those schools had keyboarding in place with programs that was moderated, and they were ensuring that the students were getting that keyboarding that they needed. As far as practice, it can't just be during the school day. You know, it does need to extend into the home environment with exercises or assignments that sometimes have typing included when we have that access. And, you know, it's a communication piece with parents because we do see students struggling. When they start out with keyboarding, it is not easy. And even some of the little ones will complain that their fingers hurt or their wrists hurt because they're using muscles that they haven't used before, and therefore they need to build up that endurance. So we recommend that we don't really keyboard with our students in a drill and practice type setting for more than 25 minutes when we're introducing keys and things like that. But it is a skill that we want the autonomy to be there so that they begin to type without thinking about where each of the letters are. Unconsciously, all of us do that. I mean, when we type the word the, we're not going T-H-E. It just kind of happens as one unit, one word. And so the more they practice, the better they will become at keyboarding. When I'm working with students out in the field, I often say it's much like riding a bike. There are lots of experiences that we can draw upon when we think about what it was like when we learned how to ride a bike. There are those children that will get on the bike and just start riding, and they just kind of get it. Yet there are those children that get on the bike and the parent or sibling will run behind and say, pedal, pedal, you know, balance, balance, and remind a student to pedal. Most of us get on a bike and we don't really think about pedaling. That's because it's a psychomotor skill just like keyboarding, and we want that autonomy to be there. We want those children to just do it without really thinking about it, and that's only going to come with practice. If you want help within your building with your teachers, and we have buildings that are starting keyboarding in 2nd grade, and if they start in 2nd grade or 3rd grade, we're still saying January. It's interesting because I've looked at a lot of research, and they are finding that age really isn't discriminatory as far as 9-year-olds when they begin to type. And they have their pre-test and they have their post-test, their speed usually increased by about 35%. Now, what they did find with the older students, 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds, is that their pre-test score was lower, yet they kind of leveled it out as time went on and they began to have practice. So I find that to be a little bit interesting. So where, you know, when you watched the video earlier, they referenced that, you know, they didn't really teach keyboarding until middle school. When I was growing up, they didn't really teach keyboarding until high school. But because it is a life skill and it is a way for our students to communicate today, it has gotten lower and lower. So again, later on I'll talk about that. So any one of our consultants that is assigned to your building can come out and work with your teachers so that they feel confident and comfortable teaching that keyboarding. So please give us a call and reference this sheet, you know, to contact one of the consultants if you feel you'd like some additional support. We'd love to help you. So grade level expectations, kindergarten through 2nd grade. This is where we really just want to start to develop some good habits. They're going to be in front of a computer or an iPad or any electronic device a lot more than we were as students. And so to me, posture and length of time has to really be moderated, how often these kids are actually on the computer and communicating with others and things like that. So in kindergarten through second, we recommend that they just become familiar with the keyboard, you know, left hand, right hand balance. Use the shift key to capitalize, use the space bar between words. One space is what is recommended. I am an oldie but a goodie, and I still use 2 spaces, and really visually for young students when I'm in the field working with them, I like to see 2 spaces visually. So that's up to you, but you will find many of the programs ask for 1 space when they're teaching how many spaces between words. Use the space bar after punctuation, and we want to teach children to use the right finger. We want them to use their thumbs. Many smaller children, you'll find they'll try to use their whole hand, 4 fingers, to use that space bar. So it is one of those things that early on you want to say, now use your thumb, use your thumb. It's just like the cap locks key. We want them to start to use the shift key, opposite hand. So if they're capitalizing a word on the right side of their keyboard, they shift with the left. If they're capitalizing a word on the left side of the keyboard, they're going to shift with their right. So, you know, the earlier we start talking about that, the earlier that they can start forming good habits, okay? And then the enter key and the tab key. In 3rd grade, this is where we start setting some expectations about what it is that we want them to do. When you use the writer or when you use the Forte, your teachers and parents will get a printout of how fast the student is typing and what their accuracy is as well. Now there's different schools of thought. Some people think that the accuracy is most important when they're learning, and then others feel the speed. You don't want students practicing the wrong key reach or typing the wrong letters. So accuracy, yes, is important. You want to make sure that their fingering is correct and things like that. But you do want them to just keep going. We don't really want them to worry about mistakes. They're going to make mistakes, but we want them to be conscious if their fingers are not placed correctly on the home row and things like that. Oh man, good habits, encouragement of good habits. You need to be a cheerleader when they're starting out because the students will struggle. This is not easy, and it really has nothing to do with intelligence or how well they do in history or in math or things like that, because it's a skill. And so kids that sometimes do very, very well in school will struggle with this process. And again, there are research pieces out there that talk about athletes and how athletes sometimes will do exceptionally well when learning how to keyboard. Also musicians, they will do exceptionally well. And what it is, I believe, and what the research dictates, is that they are comfortable using their fingers individually to strike keys and to move, and so they have that fine motor ability, and some children are a little more delayed and you need to work on that. So it's a lot of encouragement, and that's kind of where the field is not level. So coaching and saying great job and celebrating whatever successes that they have. So strategies is that they're going to sit up straight, and I talked a little bit about that earlier. They're in front of different types of devices all the time, and you know, it's not a good thing. It's a good thing to stand up and stretch and relax and be conscious of how you're holding your body posture. I guess I'm conscious of that right now. Place your feet for balance on the floor. The younger we start keyboarding, you're going to find sometimes that the little ones, their feet don't even touch the floor. So you want them to be sitting. Sometimes we let them wrap their feet around the legs of the chairs and things like that, and that helps. That's just a little tip. They want to keep their wrists off the keyboard. This is something that I see quite often where they will lay their hands down on the keyboards, and that's just a common observation that you'll see when you're working with students, but you want to encourage them to have their wrists straight and elevated off of the keyboard, because when you're pressing down and you're using those muscles, you're kind of taxing those muscles, and that's where you sometimes hear about carpal tunnel syndrome, when you have repetitive motions and you're pressing on those small muscles in your wrists. So let's keep those wrists off the keyboard. Key by touch, yes, but because it's a psychomotor skill, it is okay for the students to glance down and make sure that their fingers and hands are in the proper position. So, you know, where they used to cover up the keyboards in the olden days, and many of us learned to type that way, we want to teach students to be comfortable and confident that they look away and they look at their text, but then they can also look down. And all good typists will look down and glance down. Just notice yourself today when you start to type. You will notice that you will look down every now and then just to make sure you got your fingers on the right keys. Center your body over the center of the keyboard, and the G and the H would be the center of your keyboard when you look down at your keyboard, okay? Keep your eyes on printed copy, but again, you know, you will glance back and forth every now and then. And that skill, that transfer skill, is very difficult for young learners. We used to use the Herzog method within the district with our third graders. And I still like that method, but it is tricky to teach students to keep the eyes on the copy and to actually perform the keyboarding skill. We have copies of the Herzog manual in every lab still. It's great for additional practice or to just do something different, and please feel free to use that. And if you need additional copies, please let me know. You can email me at any time. Good posture is always good. It makes you even feel better about yourself when you are displaying good posture as you walk around. Fourth grade, we're going to increase that accuracy and speed from 8 to 11 to now 11 to 15. Handwriting, they mentioned in the video earlier that keyboarding is faster than handwriting. Handwriting is about 6 words per minute. So that's why we want our third graders at least at a minimum of 8, our fourth graders 11. And our fifth graders, we're asking for 15 to 20 words per minute with 90% accuracy. All along encouraging good habits. So when we get to the Common Core state standards, if you'll just take a look at this for a moment, why do we need the keyboard? Why do we want our students to be proficient at keyboarding? Because they will have to publish and produce writing using their keyboarding skills. And we don't want them struggling, you know, to find each letter. So initially that effort that's put forth, you know, the first 6 weeks of keyboarding will pay off in week 8, 9, 10 throughout the year, because you want to continue this progress. Okay. The role of the classroom teacher. Truthfully, I said you need to be a cheerleader, you need to be a coach, you just need to be positive and let students know how important this skill is. They are going to want to please you, and they are going to want to be successful. So it's important that as a classroom teacher, you set the tone that this is something really cool, this is something that's going to assist you as you do your writing. And sometimes if you're a good typist, if they watch you, they will be impressed with how you can keyboard with efficiency. If you're not comfortable doing that, bring someone in that has great skills. Find a student, find another staff member. They love to watch people type without looking at their keys and do it very quickly. And they need to know that they too can do this with practice. And again, you will need to set aside that time, especially during the first week and the second week. Very, very important, because they need to be reminded of proper posture and technique and where key location is and things like that until they get a system down. So that first 2 weeks is very, very important. For skill building, we'd like to see you do this 4 to 5 days a week for 10 to 20 minutes a day. 25 we used to say, but with the schedule, it is tricky, but it will pay off on the other end because of the amount of work that they'll be able to produce. The initial training should take about 6 to 8 weeks, and then you can kind of, break it up and maybe just do it once or twice a week for 20 to 25 minutes, or every day if you have some devices in your room where they can just practice for 5-10 minutes. That's all they really need to do. They just want to keep their skills and practice so that they become more confident and more proficient. So when you are using a Forte or you're using the Writer, there are 116 to 120 sequential keyboarding lessons. There are various levels. They'll start off with the first level where the program actually sets the minimum, and I believe it's 6 words per minute when they first start off, and they need to have 90% accuracy in order to pass the level, and then they need to have 2 home row points, and that's the same whether they're on the Writer or the Forte, and that is something that needs to be practiced, how they press down all of the home row keys at one time, and then they release, and they need to score 2 points on that. And it's actually kind of game-like. Students struggle with it sometimes at first, and then they get it, and they just absolutely are over the moon because they're having so much fun. So level 1 is 6 words per minute with 75% accuracy, and you can change that, and we have done that on the various machines. You can talk to your resource teachers. We can help you do that. But really, it's encouraging that practice, and notice how the accuracy is much lower, but as they increase in speed, we ask for better accuracy because it is important that their keyboarding is accurate. Alt-L changes the levels, can be done at any time. So if you're working with a student and you don't feel they're being challenged, you can go to Alt-L and change that level. You do need a password for that, and we do that so that students are not changing levels. Now, if they are skipping when the lessons print off, and it will print off every 20 lessons, you'll see where they've jumped, and you can track those changes as well. In each manual that you receive at the building, the very first page is a hot sheet, which gives you all the codes for how you change levels and how you would change your speed and accuracy and things like that. So the hot sheet is really nice to have handy, and just actually to print each of those out for yourself for quick reference. So the home row points 3 times per lesson, and they have to actually press all of the home row keys within 1.5 seconds, and they need 2 points to pass the lesson, as well as they need to meet the speed and accuracy criteria for each level that has been set. The fingers are going to lightly float above the home row keys. If they're putting their hand on their lap or moving it away, that 1.5 seconds will catch them doing that. They won't not have the reaction time that they will need in order to score those points. And that's one reason that we really love the Writer and the Forte, because it really assists the teacher with that whole monitoring process. And having the lessons and the kids just move through, it's personalized learning, and they can track their own progress, which is very self-fulfilling. Batteries and charging. Well, the Writers, they use these 3 AA batteries. They should last about 300 hours when they are getting low. Sometimes you get a message, low battery, but most times teachers are not notified, because sometimes the students will see it and they don't say anything, and then the next class someone is using them, and then all of a sudden the Writer doesn't turn on. So you always want to check with the batteries. Your technician within the building can help with that. It would be advised to talk with your technician after today's webinar and ensure that the Writers or the Fortes, whatever you are going to be using when you start your keyboarding program, that they are ready to go, that any old data has, can everybody hear me? Okay, I'm getting a message there. Has been cleared off. We want last year's work to be gone. If there is data on there, please check with the teachers that have started. We don't want to completely clear that. So you can also do that individually by student clearing data. Again, you will need a password in order to do that. You can't just clear it. The Fortes are self-charging, and they come with a self-charging cart. The batteries should last a week. You shouldn't have to recharge them every night, but just look at the signal on them to see if you need to do that, and then before you leave for the weekend, charge them so they're ready to go on Monday morning. It's good advice. That's a practice that we've been using. Okay. So these are just some pictures of some of our students within the district using the writers, and even though many people are using Fortes, they will sometimes use the writer CD that we have available because it's a very nice visual, and we are working on additional tools for you that will help with this process. And later on, I'm going to show you a website that we've created for all the teachers in the district that we hope to launch right after Christmas that will be available, so that everything you're seeing today will be available to you, as well as all of the other tech within our district. But if you notice, this is whole group. They're not using them as center work. And you can see some students are looking down and looking away, but they're all engaged and they're all working. And so that's kind of what we'd like to see. Kids really do enjoy it once they get started. And there are classes that students say, are we going to use the writers today? So that is always, always encouraging. Just a little tidbit here. Nathan Scholes, if you're a third grade teacher, very familiar with Nathan Scholes, as he is one of the inventors that they study when they're doing the Kenosha unit. His brother actually came to Kenosha first. They were originally, I think, from out east. And he started the Southport Telegraph, which is now known as the Kenosha News. And when Nathan came to this area, he first made a stop here in Kenosha and actually worked for his brother. And it's been rumored that part of the reason he went to work on the keyboard was that when he went into political office and such, his wife had to do a lot of writing, and so he wanted to make it easier for her to correspond with all of his friends and family. So he worked on this typewriter, so it was kind of a selfish thing at first. He just wanted to make things easier for his wife. So a little bit of tidbit for you there. Kind of cool, isn't it? So we really should have the best keyboardists around, don't you think? I wish this was a little more interactive. Anyone chime in? Using the writers. So these are the steps that you were going to do. You would power the writer on in the upper right-hand corner. There's just an on-off key. Can you see that okay? And then there are 8 folders that will show in the first screen. And then if you use the Alt key, you'll see 16 folders. So next, the student will be asked to input their student name, the teacher name, and then they can begin their keyboarding lessons. It's important that they use their full name and they use the teacher's full name, because when you print the reports from the writers, that will show on the top of the page. So please keep that in mind. Writers, when you're clearing all the data, when you turn it off, you do an Escape Z and you power it on and you release, and then it's going to prompt you to type in the password ACE135 and then enter. That means all data will then be removed from your writer. Can you get it back? No. So make sure when you remove all the data, that is exactly what you want to do. Now, this is different than using a paper clip in the back of the machine when you reset it, okay? When you reset a machine, it does not clear the data. So when you're getting started with the writers, You can refer to the video lessons, ready, set, go. And again, if you're using Fortes, you can go ahead and use the video. It does help people demonstrate what it should look like. And there are just a few differences between the Writer and the Forte as far as operational. And the first week, I say 30 minutes, it could take 30 to 45 minutes, you know, setting everything up and talking with students about that process and getting them all fired up. It's kind of like an orientation to, okay, here's keyboarding. And it is something they talk about. And please remember to share with parents so they're aware that this is going on as well. On the Writers, which we do not have on the Fortes, is we had some FOSS science prompts, which may or may not be appropriate for what the students are doing, so you actually have to look at the prompts and decide whether or not it aligns with your curriculum at that time when you're using the Writers. You can always create new files and do some writing on there, so you can do a lot of free writing and just practice your writing so that your students see that it's not just working in a program and seeing how fast you type and what your accuracy is, but you're actually applying that newfound skill. Okay. And to get the stories that the students write from the Writers, there are a couple ways that you can do this. You can open any word processing doc. You can use Microsoft Word. You can use Google Docs. You could use Pages, any of those. You just want to see your cursor flashing, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to press the send button from the keyboard. If you're using an infrared box, you want to make sure that you maybe cover it up, because sometimes that infrared signal with the lights in the classroom can cause interference. So what I do sometimes is just place a piece of paper over the beam from the Writer to the infrared box. If you don't have the infrared box, they're somewhere in your building. Take a look for them. You received 8 when you received your set. Okay, so if you've lost the infrared box, you don't have that anymore, you can use any AB USB cable and connect that to your Writer and then send it to the computer once the word processing file is open. So any questions so far?
Jane wants to know if you guys have any Alpha Smarts anymore.
Yes, we do. Actually, I have.
She's being sassy, I think.
Well, we do have them. And if they have Alpha Smarts, the Writer company will take them on trade-ins, you know, if you have some. So kind of helps with the price.
Good to know.
But send Jane over. I have a box of Alpha Smarts that she could use. They're still good to type, but you can't get off of the Alpha Smarts anymore. That's the problem.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, it's true. Anybody else out there? It's a lot of information. No questions from Carol Graff, Daryl, Diane? Anyone want to share how they're seeing keyboard being used at their building? No? Okay. All right. So just to assist you in the process of teaching keyboard, there is a Promethean flip chart that you could use if you're using the Writers, and it's very interactive. If you're using the Fortes, you could use this as well, and I can show that to you very quickly, just kind of what it looks like. So it is the first week of keyboarding, and it is color-coded as far as you progress in the weeks, and there are little interactive activities that you can do along the way and have kids come up and write this in. And just some talking points. Why is keyboarding important? Now, hopefully your students will talk more than you're talking to me right now. okay? Because it makes it a fun activity then. But just as an example. Okay, and I think we've talked about that. And for some reason my mouse is slipping. And we also have a Forte slideshow, because with the writer we do have the video that you can use, and so we've created a Forte slideshow for you to take a look at. And so when you're beginning Forte instruction, and again, the Fortes are the white pieces. This particular one that I actually have keyboard covers on it so that kids can't pick the keys. These sets can be purchased, and it really does help. It's just a little skin that goes over the keyboard. And if you're interested, contact me and I'll let you know. But this is kind of what the Forte looks like. When you get this, you'll notice at the bottom I have notes here, what you need on the first day, so that it kind of guides you, some talking points so when you're introducing this. Next, talk about keyboard location and review, and this is good for everyone so that everyone gets to see the keyboard and they're able to look down and find these keys. And it's not something that they're comfortable with. Even though they've been using it a long time, it's not something that a lot of them will pick up right away. So please take the time to orientate them to the keyboard. The ready position, what it should look like, and the different talking points. And again, when I showed you that flip chart, these are some things that they can fill in, because you can review this with them just using that one page of the flip chart, which is interactive, and the kids kind of get excited about it. Home row hand position, what that should look like. And again, keep in mind there are notes at the bottom so that you can reference all of this, okay, what you should say. Getting started, what the first screen looks like. So it says press all home row keys to begin each lesson. This is not easy for them, and I keep saying to you home row keys. Well, what are the home row keys? Well, the left hand is FDSA, and the right hand is JKL semicolon. Thumbs are resting lightly on the space bar, and when it says press all home rows, they have to press all 8 home row keys simultaneously at the same time. If their pinky is lifted, it's not going to count that. So it is something that has to be practiced, and it takes them a few minutes to get it. Once they get it, they're good to go. Next, your lesson will begin. They'll see what they need to type on the screen, and as they begin to type, it will rotate across the screen and it will let them know when there's an error. They will not be using the delete key for this. They just keep typing until they hit the right key. Home row points, what will happen is as they're keying in the information in the text above, prompt will flash, press all home keys, and they have 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds almost, but it should be, I think we changed it on some machines to 2 seconds because it wasn't fast enough. And those of you that need to make modifications, you can actually turn this home row key off in the settings on the keyboard. We don't recommend it for all students, but there are some students that have difficulty when they get to like the shift key lesson, they just struggle with that piece. And so we leave that up to the teacher. But it is all customizable what you would like to do with each student. Keep that in mind. And then after each lesson is completed, and the lessons are about 1.5 minutes long, you will get an update, and it will tell you what your speed was, your accuracy, and your home row. And again, you need to pass all of these levels in order to get to the next level. On this one, 1 out of 3 not passed, so they're not going to be able to advance to the next lesson. Or yes, they will. 2 out of 3 they can. I'm sorry. And so how they get started. These are the Forte carts that you'll see in your buildings. And we do talk to the students about what is necessary in regard to, you know, picking up their fortes with 2 hands and walking carefully. It's just like if they're using any other device, a Chromebook or iPad in your classroom, you want them to carry them with care. The ready position, again. Review the home row position. And I'm just going to click through this for the sake of time now. How you set up the account. So this is very helpful for the classroom teacher. You see the little snowflake to the right of the dialog box where it says Lesson 1, past level 1. That means your Forte has speakers, so whatever they type will be read back to them. Each school with their set received 2 that have the ability text-to-speech. And that little snowflake is an indicator that that particular model has the text-to-speech. And this is kind of what it looks like. See the encouragement here? Just a little reminder. Okay. What I've done when I've been in the field, I always have like a helper, just like many teachers have helpers for the day. Have a helper for the Fortes that call the numbers up so that you don't have everybody just running up to the writer cart and nothing getting done. You want to have that management system in place so that it's quick and it doesn't interfere with the rest of the day's learning. One other piece that I wanted to share with you. These are various resources that you can download. We have manuals available, and I put links on the presentation for you today. And keyboarding resources. Once students have learned to keyboard, this is just a list of various apps that has been put together by our group here in the IMC. And you'll notice we have pre-K apps as well as grade 3 through 5. And then on your Chromebook, if you want to have those items added, these are some that have been recommended. And really, that's it. We have 3 minutes left of our presentation today, so I'd like to open it up to any questions that you may have.
So it looked like Diane had her hand up.
I'm sorry.
I don't know really how to do this. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I tried typing this question, but it didn't get to you, I don't think. All right. So, Mary, can you go back through what are the grade 2 expectations for Kenosha Unified students?
Grade 2 expectations, we don't really have anything hard and defined. I will tell you, Diane, that I have been working with schools in 2nd grade, but we typically don't start until January. If you wanted more information, the 2nd grade teachers at Stoker have been doing it with success.
Well, last year Jessie came out and she worked with all the 2nd grade teachers, and they were very successful. Obviously, like you said, it's a push and pull with the amount of time that it takes. Yeah. But then, you know how teachers talk with each other across the district, you know. Not all schools are doing it, so sometimes the question is, so why do we have to? So I just wanted to get a more definitive expectation from you.
Well, I think that's a great question, and how, my personal opinion, why wouldn't we want to do something that we know would help students become more successful at, you know, performance, especially on statewide tests, and then just that confidence level when kids know how to keyboard. You and I both have children that have gone through systems, and when they get older and they're typing reports and stuff, it's just awesome that they have this particular skill. It's going to help them, beyond. So I guess that's my question, but no, it has not been mandated. And until we see it on a report card or we have a district policy, it's one of those things that it's just an expectation that we try to do it, knowing what we know and what the research tells us. I don't know.
Because, well, it does, but it's frustrating because, with our transient population, then we have the students coming in who really haven't had any kind of exposure to it, and it's pretty noticeable. And again, it's one of those gaps.
Yeah.
In our teaching.
I think with my position, what's nice is I get to move around, and I guess I just ask myself, and I would pose this question to your teaching staff, what is your sphere of influence? What do you know will help your students? And with that being said, do they think it's valid? And as a grade level, I think they could all get together and decide, what they think. And it's not easy. I mean, when they first start, but the research is there across the country. And as I said, I wish Wisconsin would get with it a little bit more. And I had a conversation with Kurt Keeper at DPI last week saying, we really need to do something more to help our students and staff, with this piece. But, they keep adding to our curriculum, but they don't really, add to our school day. So that's why I said it's really important that we try to work these minutes in during the day and encourage them to do it at home as well and have access to devices so that they can practice this.
Well, I don't want you to think I'm not in support of it. I am. But I think the teachers are too, but it's just that more unified approach to, are we all going to do it or just some?
Well, the expectation is, it is part of, the Common Core standards,
right,
that students are able to do this. So if you're teaching the standards, yes, it's an expectation. So we have adopted the Common Core standards. So
I guess that's where I would like the district then to be a little bit more forceful in having the expectation for second grade like you do for the other grades.
I can talk with my coordinator, Annie Fredrickson, and see if we can get a memo sent out kind of clarifying some of those points.
Sure.
But,
okay.
But what I find as I'm out in the field, everyone has good intentions to get this done. It's just, how do we do it? And it is one of those things I think we need to be cheerleaders for each other. Okay, we're going to get this done. We're going to set this time aside, and this is when we're going to do it. Actually, with a group of teachers, they said, should we be starting this in the fall? We got this going, and I go, you want to start this with a clear conscience, like when you're ready to do it. So if you don't think you can squeeze it in the fall, then make sure in January that you set some time aside. And we all know that being proactive and forward thinking about that, when we schedule something into our time, it's going to be done much sooner than if we say, oh, I'd like to do that, Yeah. There's always something on your plate. But again, they are, keyboarding is part of the Common Core standards, and you can reference that slide in my presentation. And please let me know if I can assist, or, have Jesse come back out again to support your teachers as well. All I can say with confidence, the schools that are doing it with their students, they are having some successes.
Awesome. Mary, thank you so much for taking the time to share all this information with us. And we did record it, so we'll have all the information, but you have some resources too that you'll share with me so I can get on our website?
Fabulous, yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and have happy holiday break, and hopefully you come back well rested, but we'll see everybody later.
Okay, thanks.